Hey, we're working on this Taylor GS5 today, and we're going to throw a set of mailbox musician strings on it. So, first thing we got to do is take a string off. Now, I know some folks like to take all the strings off at once. I like to go at one at a time because there's possibly over 200 pounds of tension here on this neck, and if we take all the strings off and then put a whole new set on all at once, that's relaxing the neck quite a bit and then putting it back under tension, and so things are going to flex and shift, and we don't need to do that. We don't need to stress things out that much. Once every 6 months or so, you might want to take all the strings off and clean the fretboard and stuff like that, but just on regular day-to-day restringing, we don't need to do that. We just need to take off one at a time. So, get my string winder here, and I'll just loosen up this string. I would recommend loosening it. If you have to cut it, then cut it after you loosen it. Don't just snip off the string, because once again, that's putting stress on the neck that it really doesn't need. So once you get the string loose, then we've got to remove this pin right here. Should have a notch on your string winder. Most do. If not, there are specialized tools such as this. Or if it's stuck so much that one of these tools won't get it, you can always take a pick or a coin, loosen up a couple of the strings beside it, and reach up in here and just push up on that string, on that pin, and there it goes. So now we've got the pin out. Get the string off. And we'll just get out this set of Mailbox Musician Phosphor Bronze 12s. So, we've got our string off, now we want to put the new one on. So a word on these pins. You'll see folks push them all the way in, and they don't actually have to be. It's not the downward pressure that's holding the string in place. It's the fact that the ball is pushing against the pin from underneath the bridge, and so it's more of a leverage thing. So what I can do is I can slip the ball down in this hole and then just slowly push the pin in until I feel it slip past the ball, and there it went. So now that string's not going anywhere. So I can press that into a comfortable tension, tight enough that it's not going to leave, and loose enough that I can get it out later, or if somebody other than me is restringing it, then somebody else can get it out. So, next step is come down here to the post, or the capstan as some call it, and we're going to get the hole to where it's lined up at, say, a 45-degree angle going up toward the center of the headstock. That way I can come up from behind this way, slide that in like that, give myself about that much distance above the fretboard, just a couple inches. I want to wind from the inside out and from the top down, and I want to make sure that I don't overlap any winds, because we want things as stable as possible so the tuning stays stable. Overlapping winds is an unstable situation that we don't want. And by keeping tension on the string with my right hand as I wind, I can make the string do exactly what I want it to as it goes onto the post. Next step, of course, we want to cut this thing off. We don't want it in our way. I cut them pretty close because I don't like to get blood tests when I get my guitar out of the case. And then the next thing we can do is we can give the string a stretch. And what I like to do on my stuff is I'll just stretch it until it doesn't go out of tune anymore. And that way I know that no matter how hard I play, it's going to do a pretty good job of staying in tune on stage. Just grab it, give it a gentle pull, a few different places on the string. Still going out just a little bit. That's close enough. I'll leave it there. So then we go on and we do the same thing with the next string. Loosen it. Pull the pin. Get the old string off. And it doesn't hurt to take a look here at the saddle and at the nut, make sure there's nothing in the way, nothing weird going on. If there is, what we can do is take some 1000 grit sandpaper, fold it, and just gently run it in the slot to get out any gunk or burrs there might be. You're going to have to work pretty hard to take off any measurable amount of material with 1000 grit sandpaper. It's pretty fine. All right, so now, time for the A string. Again, I'm going to slide the ball into the hole and then just let the pin slip past the ball. There it went. Get my hole on the post lined up, come in from behind, run it through, give it a bend both directions. Now I'm ready to wind. Inside out, top down. And usually want 2 to 3 winds. Cut it off. And then give it some stretches. And that should do it. There are some schools of thought that feel that you need to tie knots and things or do some kind of overlapping maneuver when you're putting the string on the post. You don't have to do that. There's a lot of tension going on here, and the tension itself is going to keep this from going anywhere. And I put a bend in the string. It's not going to pull out. I was shown this way to string by my first repair teacher, who worked for Stuart Mossman in the 70s. He really knew his stuff. I won't say this is the only right way to do it, but it's a quick and easy way, and it's extremely stable. And you don't have to work too hard to get the string off again later. So and if you find yourself stringing a lot of guitars, which I do, I find an attachment like this is extremely useful. So moving to the treble side, we got to remember that everything we were doing on the other side is now reversed, because we're still working referencing off the center. So I get my post set at an angle, run my string through from the back, inside out, bottom down. In terms of nut slots, the two that are probably going to be the biggest problem are going to be the D and the G string, because they're both in the middle and the strings take the most dramatic turn after the nut, which means they've got a greater potential of getting caught and causing tuning issues. If you hear any creaking when you're tuning up, that means that something's catching somewhere. 9 times out of 10, it's the nut. So then all you have to do is grab your 1000 grit sandpaper and clean that nut slot out a little bit. So on acoustics, usually we've got a wound third, which means there are 2 plain strings. First string and the second string. On the plain strings, it usually pays to have a couple more winds on the post than the wound strings. If I can't get the pin to slip past the ball, what I can do is I can just come over here, put a tiny bend in the end of the string, and that will set me up to move right past it when I put it in. See, this one doesn't want to seat. As I pull on it, it's pulling the pin up, so I'll give it a little bend. Now it pops right in. All right, now this Taylor's ready for the gig.